Across Australia, university campuses are empty. Here at Australia's largest uni, Monash University in Melbourne, most buildings remain closed. Classes have moved online. Even as the spread of COVID-19 appears to slow across Australia, its impact on tertiary education is intensifying.
The practical, financial and travel complications of the next couple of years means the market will be, at least for a few years, much smaller than it would have been had COVID-19 never happened.
Enrollments from overseas are predicted to crash in the coming months.
I just think it is naive to think that big change is not on the way.
Tertiary education is Australia's fourth largest export. International education contributed $37.6 billion to the economy in the last financial year and supported 240,000 jobs, 16% of which are expected to disappear in the months to come. Losses of $3 to $5 billion for the sector have already been predicted for the year. But the real cost will not be known for many months, and the impact will be profound.
We will have to look at different ways of operating. So you can't lose that revenue stream and just go back to business as usual. That will not be the case.
Morning everyone.
For now, the government has said it's unashamedly focused on domestic students. A newly announced rescue package for universities has guaranteed $18 billion of funding, regardless of enrolment numbers, and another $100 million in regulatory relief.
We want to make sure that this pandemic does not take away education opportunities from the Australian people.
But will it be enough to fend off the looming financial shortfall?
So it will be helpful for the universities that are struggling in their domestic market, but it doesn't really do anything for the biggest problem, which is falling numbers of international students.
And the personal toll on the international students still here is growing. Those who've lost their job don't have access to New Start or the JobKeeper scheme.
How do you foresee this playing out over the next few months? Are you scared?
Oh, definitely. I don't know what's going to happen. It's really been a lesson in take things day by day.
David Boggy is an international student from India. He's in his final semester of a master's degree at the University of Melbourne.
And how are you going financially supporting yourself at the moment without a job?
Well, yes, I am relying very heavily on my savings, which are, diminishing right before my eyes at a tremendous speed. Of course, I've been desperately applying to various jobs around at supermarkets. I haven't received word from any of the places that I applied to.
Yunan Lin is a student from China. He's also lost his job.
Then the last thing I wanted to do is to reach out to my family because they have been suffering a lot in China due to the COVID-19. My parents, they run a restaurant in China. Because of the COVID-19, they had to close down the restaurant for, I think it was 2 months straight.
The question now is that these bills be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye.
Critics have argued for the inclusion of temporary migrants and working international students in the government's $130 billion JobKeeper package.
Because the kinds of jobs that they often do in hospitality and retail have basically disappeared overnight, many of them are suddenly facing no or vastly reduced incomes. Just the practical realities of financing themselves will mean they'll either have to abandon their courses if they're already here, or never turn up if they are still thinking about coming to Australia next year or subsequent years.
Universities have stepped in to provide assistance. In total, Australian universities have committed more than $110 million to hardship support funds. Prime Minister Scott Morrison insists international students should have the capacity to support themselves.
All students who come to Australia in their first year have to give a warranty that they are able to support themselves for the first 12 months of their study. That is a requirement of their visa.
But the sector worries there'll be a broader economic impact if their financial outlook does not improve. And a significant portion of that relies on international enrolments.
We have deferred around $800 million worth of capital works across our 8 universities. That capital works employs people from the construction industry. It employs people in trades. Those people don't have a job to go to.
It's been estimated it will cost an extra $25 billion to include temporary migrants and international students in the government's JobKeeper scheme.
I think it would be a good investment. In some ways, I think it's a responsibility. When you get an event which is something they could never have predicted and cannot control, I think Australia's in a situation where we've taken the benefits of temporary migrants for a long time in both international education and many other areas of society. And now, unfortunately, when the bad times come, we also have to incur the costs of that.
Some have argued the tertiary education sector has grown too reliant on overseas enrolments. A report published last year by the Centre of Independent Studies warned of an over-reliance of funding from overseas students at Australia's universities, particularly from China, labelling it a high-risk gamble for taxpayers if the revenue dried up. That reality is now one our institutions are facing.
I've always found that over-reliance word really funny. I don't think it's over-reliance. I think we've deliberately opened our doors. I think we would like to have a conversation with government about how it is we adequately fund our system once we are over the hump here.
With overseas travel restrictions expected to last many more months, perhaps into next year, universities are bracing for a sustained decline in international enrolments. That won't just leave them underfunded. It will affect their ability to produce vital research.
Can I say, ironically, a lot of the research we're doing right now is directly targeted at finding a way out of this particular crisis that we're in. And when our researchers either can't get here or are not supported, that makes it very difficult for us to do the job that we are here to do.
The impact of this pandemic on our universities will be dramatic. The financial fallout is happening alongside a deepening crisis for international students, left desperate and without employment. Some are predicting the sector and the nation will be permanently transformed by the crisis.
Our university and higher education system has been in train since 1989 and has been patched and patched and patched. This is the time to redesign it a bit.
And I think it's really only in the last couple of years that we're starting to realise that having probably 1.8 million temporary migrants has huge economic, social and political consequences. If there's any silver linings in all of this, hopefully it is that we think more deeply about the nature of temporary migration and what implications that has for Australian society.